Welcome back to Switch Top. This is a rundown of the best games the Switch has to offer, judged on how they play, what they're about, and how well they've held up. Some are launch era classics, some are recent additions. Let's get into it. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's a platform fighter that pulled together every character who'd ever appeared in the series, over 70 at launch, and added more through paid DLC fighters like Sephiroth, Steve, and Kazuya. The core mechanics stayed close to Smash 4, but with a faster pace, quicker air dodges, and rage that gives extra knockback to players who are behind on stocks. Spirits replaced trophies as the collectible system, tied into a single-player mode called World of Light that chains together thousands of fights against spirit-powered enemies. Online play runs through Elite Smash for higher-level matchmaking, and the stage builder lets you make your own arenas. It's not the deepest fighting game mechanically compared to something like Melee, but as a complete package of content and characters, nothing else on the system comes close. Bayonetta 3 sends the witch fighting through a multiverse war against an extra-dimensional threat called Homunculi, alongside a new character named Viola, who plays with her own moveset and a cat companion. The combat keeps the series' signature Witch Time, a slow-motion window triggered by dodging at the last second, but adds Demon Masquerade, letting Bayonetta briefly transform into towering demons mid-combo for massive damage. Summoning full-sized demons to smash through city blocks becomes a recurring set piece rather than a rare event. Weapon combinations are deep again, letting you mix guns, whips, and elemental demon weapons into your own combo strings. The story is messier and more experimental than the first two games, splitting focus between Bayonetta and Viola in ways that some fans found jarring. Metroid Prime Remastered is a ground-up visual overhaul of the 2002 original, keeping the atmosphere and structure fully intact while updating textures, lighting, and controls. Samus lands on Talon 4 to investigate a distress signal, and ends up unraveling a planet overtaken by the parasitic Phazon substance, and the space pirates studying it. The game plays as a first-person adventure rather than a shooter, built around scanning enemies and environments for lore and puzzle clues, and unlocking new visors and beam types to open previously blocked paths. Modern dual-stick controls were added for the remaster, replacing the original's more awkward control scheme, which makes exploration and combat feel far more natural today. The interconnected map design, where areas loop back on themselves once you gain new abilities, still holds up as one of the best examples of that style in any game. Super Mario RPG is a remake of the 1996 Super Nintendo game, keeping the same turn-based combat with timed button presses that boost or block damage. Mario teams up with Mallow, Geno, Bowser, and Peach to chase down Smithy, a weapon-obsessed villain who's fallen from another world and started replacing the Mushroom Kingdom with machinery. The action command system is what separates it from standard turn-based RPGs, since every attack and defense has a timing window that rewards paying attention, instead of just picking a menu option. The remake redraws everything in a chibi 3D style and adds new boss rematches and an updated soundtrack. But the level design, dungeons, and pacing are untouched from the original. It's a short RPG by modern standards, running around 15 hours, but the humor and Geno's spotlight, given his absence from later Mario games, make it stand out. Animal Crossing New Horizons drops you on a deserted island with Tom Nook, tasked with building a settlement from scratch instead of moving into an already established town like past entries. Terraforming is the big mechanical addition, letting you reshape cliffs, rivers, and paths however you want instead of working around a fixed layout. Progress runs on real time, with shops, events, and villager conversations tied to the actual calendar and season, which means the game rewards checking in daily rather than marathon sessions. There's no real win state. It's an open-ended life sim built around fishing, bug catching, fossil hunting, decorating, and slowly filling out a museum. Nook Miles gave the series its first real achievement system, nudging players toward tasks they might otherwise skip. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. This is a remaster of the 2010 Wii original, rebuilt with new visuals, dual audio, and quality of life changes for battle speed and item management. Shulk wields the Monado, a sword capable of glimpsing seconds into the future, and sets out with his friends after a Mechon attack destroys his home, following a trail that eventually questions who's really controlling the world he lives on. Combat is real-time, positioning matters for flanking bonuses, and the Monado's future vision mechanic can warn you of incoming attacks that would otherwise wipe your party. The Definitive Edition adds an epilogue chapter called Future Connected, giving a new story arc for 2 supporting characters after the main game ends. The open zones are massive and vertical, encouraging exploration over a straight-line critical path. Pikmin 4 puts you in control of a rescue squad sent to find Captain Olimar, missing after his ship crashed on the same planet from the earlier games. You command squads of Pikmin, small plant creatures with different elemental resistances and abilities, to fight enemies, break obstacles, and haul resources back to base against a strict day and night timer. This entry adds Ochi, a dog companion who can carry Pikmin, fight independently, and swim, plus a new night mode where you fend off waves of enemies using glow Pikmin. Dandori challenges turn the core gather and optimize loop into timed puzzle stages, testing how efficiently you can route your Pikmin. The structure is more forgiving than past entries, since losing Pikmin doesn't feel as punishing, and there's more room to explore without the days running out. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a side-scrolling platformer where Donkey Kong's island gets frozen over by the Snowmads, a group of Viking-themed animals, forcing DK and his crew to retake it stage by stage. The level design is built around momentum and precise jumps, with barrel cannons, minecart sequences, and water levels that all demand tight timing rather than button mashing. Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky Kong can be brought along as a rideable partner, each giving a different secondary ability like extra jump height or a cane bounce. Difficulty ramps up hard in the back half, especially in the minecart and rocket barrel stages, which are some of the toughest platforming sequences on the system. Every level is packed with hidden collectibles and alternate paths, rewarding replays instead of a single straight run-through. Luigi's Mansion 3 traps Luigi, Mario, and friends inside a haunted hotel called The Last Resort, after accepting an invite from King Boo in disguise. The core gimmick is the vacuum-based poltergust, used to suck up ghosts after stunning them with a flashlight burst, and the strobulb and dark light device return for finding hidden objects and revealing invisible platforms. Gooigi, a green goo clone of Luigi, is the new addition, letting you solve 2-player co-op puzzles solo by controlling both characters and having Gooigi pass through hazards Luigi can't. Each of the hotel's 17 floors is its own self-contained theme, from a music floor to a movie studio to a medieval floor, each with its own boss fight and puzzle logic. The humor leans into Luigi's cowardice more than past entries, and the ghost-catching combat has more variety with elemental attacks tied to specific ghost types. Fire Emblem Three Houses puts you in the role of a professor at Garreg Mach Monastery, choosing one of 3 student houses to lead into a war that eventually splits them against each other. Outside of battle, you spend time teaching classes, building support relationships, and managing a calendar of activities that shape which units grow strong in which combat roles. Battles are grid-based tactics with permanent unit death on higher difficulties, and the class system lets students certify into new roles like Mage, Cavalier, or Dark Knight, depending on how you train them. The choice of house early on massively changes the second half of the story, since the same war plays out from different perspectives with different characters on opposing sides. It's a long game with a lot of downtime between battles, which some prefer and others find slows the pacing. The Thousand Year Door is a remake of the 2004 GameCube game, keeping its turn-based combat built around timed button presses and audience reactions that boost your attacks. Mario chases a treasure map across Rogueport, gathering 7 crystal stars while uncovering a 1,000-year-old evil sealed beneath the town by an ancient tribe. Combat takes place on a stage in front of a live audience, and action commands reward precise timing on both attacks and blocks, similar to Super Mario RPG, but with more variety in badge customization. Partners like Goombella and Vivian each bring field abilities used for puzzles as well as combat support. And the writing is considered some of the sharpest in the whole Mario franchise, especially the Chapter 4 arc set in Glitzville. The remake redraws the visuals, but keeps the pacing and dialogue mostly untouched. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. 3D World is a 4-player 3D platformer built on tight, contained levels rather than open worlds, using power-ups like the cat suit for climbing and the double cherry for cloning yourself. Bowser's Fury flips that formula into an open, connected map, where a corrupted Bowser Jr. and a giant Fury Bowser periodically invade, forcing Mario to use a new giant cat form to fight back in real time. The two halves play very differently. One is precise and level-based, the other is loose and exploratory, which gives the package more variety than a typical Mario release. Co-op in 3D World can get chaotic, since players can bump each other around, but it's built for that kind of shared chaos rather than against it. Bowser's Fury in particular hints at design ideas that later showed up in Mario Wonder. Link's Awakening is a remake of the 1993 Game Boy game, rebuilt with a toy-like diorama art style and a full orchestral score. Link washes up on Koholint Island after a shipwreck, and learns the only way to leave is to wake the Windfish, a giant creature sleeping inside an egg atop Mount Tamaranch, guarded by 8 dungeons full of familiar Zelda enemies alongside cameos from Mario characters like Goombas and Piranha Plants. The dungeon design is dense and puzzle-heavy for its length, and the new Chamber Dungeon feature lets you build custom dungeons out of rooms collected during the main quest. It's shorter and more linear than later open-world Zelda games, closer in spirit to the classic top-down structure of the earliest entries. The remake's frame rate can dip in busier areas, which was a common complaint at launch. Metroid Dread continues Samus's story directly after Metroid Fusion, sending her to planet ZDR to investigate a video showing an X-parasite, a threat believed extinct. She's hunted throughout by an EMMI, a robotic organism that can one-shot her if caught, forcing tense stealth sequences through specific zones where combat isn't an option and you have to route around detection instead. Outside the EMMI zones, it plays as a fast, momentum-heavy 2D Metroid with a new melee counter that rewards precise timing against enemy attacks. The map design brings back the classic Metroid structure of ability-gated backtracking, but with much snappier traversal than older entries thanks to slides, wall jumps, and a flash shift dash. The story ties together decades of Metroid lore about Samus's connection to the Chozo and the X-parasite in a way longtime fans had been waiting for. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a port and expansion of the Wii U original, now the best-selling game on the platform. Anti-gravity sections let karts drive on walls and ceilings during specific track segments, adding a layer to track design that earlier entries didn't have. And items got rebalanced, with double item slots and a smarter blue shell drop rate. The Deluxe Edition packed in every piece of Wii U DLC at launch, and later added the Booster Course Pass, bringing the total track count to 96, pulling in tracks from Mario Kart Tour and older console entries. Battle Mode got proper stages back after being cut in the Wii U version, fixing one of the bigger complaints from that release. It's accessible enough for casual players, but has a real competitive scene built around tight drifting and item management. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a 2D platformer that breaks from the new Super Mario Bros. Visual style entirely, going for a more expressive, hand-animated look. The core edition is Wonder Flowers, hidden in every level, which trigger a surreal transformation when touched, turning pipes into living creatures, flooding a level with purple goo, or sending Mario through a warped, physics-bending version of the stage. These moments change what a level is about mid-run, rather than just adding a gimmick on top, which keeps the pacing unpredictable in a way older 2D Mario games weren't. New power-ups like the Elephant Fruit and Drill Mushroom give fresh interactions with the environment, instead of just reskinning existing abilities. Badges let you customize Mario's moveset before a level, adding things like a parachute cap or a grappling vine jump. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 follows Rex, a salvager who becomes bonded to Pyra, a blade, a living weapon in human form, after a chance encounter sends them searching for the mythical Elysium at the top of the World Tree. Combat centers on driver and blade pairs, where drivers fight in real time, while summoned blades provide elemental attacks and passive bonuses, and chaining elemental orbs together triggers massive combo damage. The blade system also drives a gacha-style mechanic for unlocking new blades from core crystals, which was a divisive addition compared to the more straightforward party building in the first game. The world is built from titans, enormous living creatures that entire nations are built on top of, giving the environments a scale and verticality distinct from the first Xenoblade's static landmasses.
I will grow stronger. I wish the battle could have been avoided.
But that's war for you, I suppose.
Kirby and the Forgotten Land moves the series into full 3D for the first time, sending Kirby through an abandoned, human-style world after his home is swallowed by a mysterious vortex alongside the rest of his people. The copy ability system returns, letting Kirby inhale enemies for their powers, but adds mouthful mode, where Kirby can swallow entire objects like cars or vending machines and use them as temporary transformations with unique attacks. Levels are more linear paths through 3D space rather than an open world, but each one is packed with hidden Waddle Dees to rescue, which unlock new areas back at the hub town as you save more of them. Boss fights are more mechanically involved than past Kirby games, requiring pattern recognition rather than just button mashing. Dead Cells is a roguelike Metroidvania, where you play as a shapeless mass of cells possessing a headless body, fighting through a cursed, ever-shifting castle. Death resets your run, dropping most of your gear, but permanent upgrades like extra health flasks or new starting weapons persist between attempts, giving progress even after a failed run. Combat is fast and weapon variety driven, mixing melee weapons, bows, shields, and traps, with builds shaped around scrolls that boost specific damage types like brutality, tactics, or survival. The map layout is procedurally generated each run, but built from hand-designed rooms, so it stays readable and fair instead of feeling random for its own sake. Metroidvania-style ability gates return later runs to earlier areas with new tools to reach previously blocked paths. Astral Chain casts you as a police officer in a near-future city fighting invisible monsters called Chimera, using a tethered creature called a Legion that fights alongside you on a literal chain. Combat is built around managing that chain, positioning your Legion for combos, using it to bind enemies in place, or pulling yourself toward them to close distance quickly. 5 different Legion types, sword, arrow, beast, arm, and axe, each play completely differently, and switching between them mid-fight is core to handling tougher enemies. Outside of combat, the game has a surprising amount of detective work, investigating crime scenes, interviewing witnesses, and piecing together cases in your precinct's district. The story leans into themes of duty, sacrifice, and what humanity owes the things it creates to protect itself.
Let's get 'em!
Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, set on the same map years later, after Hyrule Castle is lifted into the sky and Ganondorf resurfaces as the true source of the earlier calamity. The biggest addition is Ultra Hand, letting Link fuse objects together to build vehicles, weapons, and machines out of scavenged parts, turning puzzle solving into open-ended construction rather than fixed solutions. Fuse lets you combine weapons and shields with materials for new effects, and Ascend lets Link rise straight up through ceilings, both of which change how you approach exploration compared to the first game. Sky Islands and an underground depths layer triple the explorable space, adding entirely new biomes stacked above and below the original overworld. The dungeons are more traditional this time, addressing a common complaint about Breath of the Wild's shrine-heavy structure. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 merges the worlds of the first two games into a new setting where soldiers from two warring nations, Kevs and Agnes, are conscripted from birth and given a fixed lifespan before being recycled into the war machine. 6 protagonists from both sides band together after gaining the ability to interlink, fusing pairs into powerful Ouroboros forms mid-battle for massive attacks. The class system lets any character learn any job, similar to a job system in other RPGs, letting you build flexible parties instead of being locked into fixed roles per character. Combat carries over the real-time positioning and blade-style chain attacks from the second game, but streamlines the more convoluted gacha mechanics that divided players before. The story is heavier and more overtly about the cost of endless war than the first two entries, dealing directly with characters facing short, predetermined lifespans.
You're a lifesaver. No, enemy's broken away from me.
Persona 5 Royal is an expanded version of the 2016 game, following a group of high school students who use masked alter egos called personas to enter the corrupted subconscious of adults abusing their power, stealing their distorted desires to force a change of heart in the real world. Gameplay splits between turn-based dungeon crawling through stylized palaces and a daily life sim where how you spend evenings and weekends builds confidant relationships that unlock combat bonuses and story content. The Royal Edition adds a new character, Kasumi, a new semester of story after the original ending, a new palace, and quality of life changes like a grappling hook for faster traversal. Combat rewards exploiting enemy weaknesses to knock them down and chain into an all-out attack, with Persona Fusion letting you build specific skill combinations for tougher fights.
Persona. Go down!
Super Mario Odyssey sends Mario across a series of distinct kingdoms, chasing Bowser, who's forcing Peach into a wedding after stealing her away in his airship. The core new mechanic is Cappy, a sentient hat that lets Mario capture and control enemies and objects, turning a Goomba stack into a platforming tool or a bullet bill into a flying escape from a tight space. Each kingdom is a small sandbox, rather than a linear level, packed with power moons as the main collectible, and the sheer number of them, over 800 across the game, encourages picking apart every corner of a map instead of following a set path. Boss fights usually revolve around finding the right thing to capture to beat them, which keeps combat tied into the exploration mechanic instead of being separate from it. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Link wakes up 100 years after Calamity Ganon nearly destroyed Hyrule, with no memory, and has to relearn the kingdom's history while gathering strength to finally end the threat. The game throws out the series' usual linear dungeon order in favor of full open-world freedom, letting you head straight for the final boss, if you can survive it, or spend 100 hours exploring shrines, towers, and the physics-driven world first. Chemistry and physics systems interact constantly. Fire spreads through grass, metal conducts electricity, wind affects gliding, and most puzzles have more than one valid solution depending on what tools you bring. Weapon durability breaks gear often, forcing you to constantly experiment with new weapons instead of relying on one favorite. That's the list. Everyone's ranking looks different depending on what you value: story, combat, or exploration. Drop your own top pick in the comments and let me know which ones I got wrong. Thanks for watching.